On a freezing night, in the dim alleys behind a row of restaurants, a young homeless girl sifted through trash bags with trembling hands. She was dirty, hungry, and invisible to the world. But that night, something in the dumpster wasn't trash at all. It was a baby, a tiny, abandoned baby. And as she wrapped the child in her torn jacket, she didn't know that this single act of compassion would unravel a secret that had been buried for years, a secret that tied her not to the streets, but to one of the wealthiest families in the city. How could a girl who had nothing discover she was born to inherit everything? The city never noticed her. Every evening, when the streetlights flickered on and the shopkeepers dragged their shutters down, a thin figure emerged from the alleyways, silent, almost invisible. Her name was Lila. At 17, she had already learned how to live as if she were made of air, slip past people without being seen, search the trash bins without being heard, curl up in corners without being remembered. Her home was the back of an abandoned convenience store. A cracked wall sheltered her from the wind, and a stack of cardboard boxes served as her bed. She ate whatever leftovers she could gather, half-eaten sandwiches, cold fries, stale bread. Some nights she would find nothing at all, and hunger gnawed at her until dawn. And yet, even in this harsh existence, her heart had not hardened. When other homeless children fought over scraps, Lila would step aside. When stray dogs lingered near her corner, she shared her bread with them, watching their tails wag as if it gave her back a piece of the humanity the world had stolen. To society, she was forgotten, but within her, kindness still burned, quiet, stubborn, like a candle no one could extinguish. That night, the wind was cruel. Rainwater dripped from the gutters, and Lila shivered beneath her torn hoodie. She rummaged through a dumpster behind a restaurant, her hands numb, when a sound froze her. It wasn't the rustle of rats. It wasn't the hum of passing traffic. It was a cry, thin, trembling, but unmistakably human. Her breath caught. She pushed aside a black trash bag. The sound grew louder. With trembling hands, she tore the plastic open. Inside lay a bundle of rags, and within it, a baby. Lila's chest tightened. The infant's face was red from the cold, tiny fists flailing, mouth open in desperate wails. For a moment, the world tilted. A baby, left in the trash. Her hands shook as she lifted the child, clutching it close to her chest. The baby's warmth seeped into her, fragile and precious. Tears blurred her eyes. Why would someone do this? How could they? Her heart pounded with fear. She had nothing, no roof, no money, not even food for herself, and yet, staring into the helpless child's face, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She couldn't leave it here. Her resolve hardened. She would keep the baby safe, whatever it cost her. But reality crashed in immediately. Where could she go? Who would listen to her? She was invisible to everyone, and now she held a secret that could not be ignored. But where could she take a baby when she herself had no home? The baby would not stop crying. Lila crouched in the narrow corner behind the convenience store, clutching the bundle close to her chest. The infant's tiny body trembled against her, its cries slicing through the night like broken glass. Lila whispered softly, rocking back and forth, though she knew she had no lullaby, no soothing melody. Only her heartbeat, quick and unsteady, answered the child's sobs. Her stomach growled. She had eaten nothing since the morning, and now this small, helpless life demanded more than she had ever possessed. What could she give? Still, as the minutes passed, something stirred inside her. Fear lingered, yes, but beneath it, a fragile warmth began to bloom. The baby's skin was soft against her palm, its breath uneven but real, alive. That warmth anchored her, pulling her away from the emptiness she had known for years. She whispered, "It's okay. You're not alone anymore." The baby quieted for a moment as if listening. By dawn, Lila had made her decision. She scavenged more carefully than ever, not for herself, but for the child. At the bakery's dumpster, she found a loaf of bread, still warm at its center. She tore off the soft pieces for her own hunger, but kept the crusts, breaking them into crumbs to soak in water. It was far from enough, but it was all she had. When the baby whimpered again, she dipped a cloth in the damp crumbs, pressing it gently against the child's lips. It wasn't milk. It wasn't what the infant truly needed. But the baby suckled weakly, quieting once more. Exhaustion weighed on Lila's bones, yet she held the child as if letting go would shatter them both. She watched the rise and fall of its chest, listening to the fragile rhythm of life. For the first time in years, she wasn't only living for herself. Days blurred together. Lila learned quickly how to swaddle the baby tighter with scavenged cloth, how to warm its tiny hands against her skin, how to move silently so no one would notice the bundle she carried. The city was dangerous. If anyone discovered the child with her, questions would come. Questions she couldn't answer. They would take the baby away and, maybe worse, blame her for its abandonment. So she hid the child like a secret, protecting it with every ounce of strength she didn't know she had. At night, when she lay on the cardboard floor, she whispered stories. Not real stories, just fragments of dreams. Someday, little one, you'll see the sun without being cold. Someday you'll eat food that isn't from the trash. Someday you'll have a name. Her voice shook, but the baby seemed soothed, falling asleep against her chest. The bond grew silently, but unshakably. Lila began to smile in ways she hadn't in years. She started to forget the gnawing ache of hunger, the bitterness of being unseen. In the child's wide, searching eyes, she saw something she thought she had lost forever: hope. But shadows never stayed away for long. On the fifth night, as she huddled near the dumpster, she noticed someone watching. A man across the street lingered too long, his gaze flicking toward her bundle. Lila's blood ran cold. She tightened her arms around the child, turning into the darkness. Her heart thundered. She knew this fragile bond, this tiny miracle she had found, could be torn away in an instant. And in that moment, Lila realized protecting the baby might mean risking everything she had left. The streets had always ignored Lila, faces passing, eyes sliding away as if she were invisible. But now, carrying the baby pressed to her chest, she began to notice the difference. People stared longer. Some whispered to one another, frowning. Where did she get that child? Can't be hers. Look at her. Each fragment of gossip drifted toward her like poison. Lila kept her head down, clutching the bundle tighter. The city had turned into a maze of eyes, every shadow a threat, every stranger a danger. She found safety only in the alleys. At night, she crept into abandoned corners to rest, ears sharp to every sound. She had survived the streets long enough to sense when danger circled, and danger was circling now. The man she had seen days before appeared again. He lingered near the convenience store, pretending to smoke, his gaze always too fixed. Lila noticed his shoes, polished leather, far too clean for someone loitering in filth. Her instincts screamed. Whoever he wasn't just curious. That night, she whispered to the baby, "They mustn't find you. I won't let them." The child's tiny fingers curled around her own, fragile but certain, as if promising to trust her. By morning, rumors had spread even further. She overheard 2 women by the bakery. They say she stole that baby. Poor thing. But if it's true, the police should take it from her. The words struck like knives. Lila froze, clutching the wall for balance. She wanted to shout, "I didn't steal her. She was abandoned. I saved her." But no one would believe a homeless girl who smelled of dust and dumpsters. So she walked away, faster, hiding her trembling. The city grew louder in its suspicion. Strangers stopped her, asking questions in sharp tones. How old is your baby? Where's the father? Lila's lips would part, but no answers came. She was too afraid. Any slip could cost the child everything. So she stayed silent, walking away with her head lowered. The silence made her seem guiltier. Whispers followed her everywhere. Food grew scarce. She could no longer scavenge from her usual spots without drawing attention. Hunger clawed at her stomach, and the baby's cries grew thinner, weaker. Lila's fear twisted into desperation. One evening, she risked approaching the back door of the bakery. The owner, an older woman with tired eyes, stood sweeping flour from the step. Lila bowed her head. "Please," she whispered, "not for me, for the baby." The woman's gaze softened as it drifted to the bundle in her arms. Without a word, she set aside a small paper bag. Inside, 2 rolls, warm and golden. Tears stung Lila's eyes as she whispered, "Thank you." But even kindness carried risk. A man across the street watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. When Lila looked up, he turned away, but not before she caught the gleam of recognition. She felt the chill of a net tightening around her. That night, she hid deeper than ever, tucking herself behind a rusted fence near the rail tracks. The baby whimpered softly, and she hushed it, heart hammering. Her mind churned. Who was that man? Why was he watching her? Was he with the police? Or worse, was he connected to whoever had abandoned the baby in the first place? The thought made her blood run cold. What if the child wasn't unwanted? What if someone had thrown her away, only to come back and claim her for reasons far darker? The city's whispers were no longer just suspicion. They were warnings. As the night deepened, Lila pressed her forehead against the baby's tiny head. She whispered through clenched teeth, "I don't care what they say. I'll protect you, even if the whole world turns against us." The infant stirred, as if understanding, and nestled closer into her arms. But in the shadows, footsteps echoed faintly. Slow, measured, too close. Lila's breath caught. Someone was searching. And as the footsteps drew nearer, Lila realized the secret she carried was no longer hidden. Someone was hunting her, and the child. The footsteps did not belong to a stranger passing by. They paused, hesitated, then came again, slow and deliberate, crunching over broken glass and gravel. Lila's chest tightened. She crouched lower, pulling the baby close, every nerve on fire. A shadow stretched across the rusted fence. "Don't run," a voice said, low, calm, male. Lila's instinct was to flee, yet something in his tone, measured, controlled, made her freeze. She pressed her back against the cold wall, silent, praying he would go away. But the man stepped closer. A tall figure emerged from the dark trench coat brushing against his knees, the glow of a cigarette ember briefly lighting sharp features. His eyes, however, held no warmth. "I've been watching you," he said. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." Her throat clenched. She shook her head fiercely. Number she was left to die. I saved her. The man studied her, exhaling smoke. His silence was heavier than accusation. Finally, he flicked the cigarette to the ground and ground it beneath his heel. "You think the city cares about that? They see a homeless girl with a stolen baby, and they see trouble." The baby whimpered. Lila rocked her quickly, heart racing. "I won't let you take her." The man tilted his head. "You don't even know who she is, do you? Where she came from?" His words dug into her like claws. She had avoided those very questions, burying them beneath instinct and survival. But now, spoken aloud, they echoed in her mind with terrifying weight. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Someone who knows more than you," he replied. "Call me Ash." The name felt like smoke. Uncertain, dangerous, impossible to grasp. Ash crouched slightly, leveling his gaze with hers. Listen, girl. People are already whispering. The police are asking questions. If they catch you, they'll take the child. Maybe worse, you won't stand a chance. I don't care, Lila whispered, though her voice trembled. She's mine now. A humorless smile tugged at his lips. Possession doesn't make her yours. Blood does. The words hit her like a blow. Blood. Family. The thought she had been too afraid to consider. Was someone looking for this baby? Someone powerful? Someone cruel? Ash stood again, glancing down the alley as if expecting to be followed. I can help you. Keep you hidden. Keep her safe. Lila narrowed her eyes. Why would you help me? His expression hardened. Because if you stumble, the wrong people will find her first. Her arms tightened protectively. What wrong people? Ash's jaw clenched, and for a moment he didn't answer. Then softly, he said, the kind who don't throw babies away to forget them, but to erase them. The meaning chilled her blood. A train thundered by on the nearby tracks, rattling the fence. In its roar, Lila's thoughts raced. She didn't trust this man, not his voice, not his shadowed eyes. Yet a terrible truth gnawed at her. He knew more than she did, and ignorance could kill. When the train's noise faded, Ash's voice cut through the silence. Decide quickly. You can run from me tonight, hide in the cracks a little longer, but they'll find you, and when they do, the baby won't survive it. His words left no room for doubt. Lila's mind split in two. Part of her screamed to run, vanish, cling to the fragile world she had built with scraps and shadows. Another part whispered that maybe, just maybe, this stranger was the only lifeline left. The baby stirred, letting out a weak cry. The sound pierced Lila's chest like a blade. She couldn't gamble with the child's life. She looked up at Ash, her voice barely audible. If I go with you, how do I know you won't hurt her? Ash's eyes, dark and sharp, softened only slightly. Because if I wanted to, I already could have. The night air thickened between them. Lila swallowed hard, torn between fear and fragile hope. At last she whispered, Then show me. Prove you can keep her safe. Ash nodded once, slow and deliberate. Tomorrow night, by the river, I'll be waiting. He turned, melting back into the darkness as silently as he had come. Lila sat frozen, clutching the baby, her heart pounding like thunder. The city stretched around her, vast and hostile, and for the first time she realized she wasn't just hiding from whispers anymore. Something far bigger and far darker had begun to hunt them. And as the echo of his footsteps faded, Lila wondered, had she just found an ally, or stepped into a trap? The river smelled of rust and old secrets. Its waters churned dark beneath the crumbling bridge, carrying away fragments of the city no one cared to remember. Lila stood at the edge, clutching the baby against her chest, eyes darting to every shadow. Ash had said he would be here, but trusting him still felt like balancing on broken glass. A flicker of movement on the opposite bank. He appeared without sound, stepping out from the gloom as if he were part of it. His coat brushed the damp air, his face unreadable. You came, he said simply. I shouldn't have, Lila muttered, her voice hoarse. Ash's gaze shifted to the baby. The child whimpered softly, then quieted as if sensing the weight of the night. Do you want the truth? Ash asked. Or do you want the comfort of lies? Lila's throat tightened. The truth, even if it hurts. Ash exhaled, his breath mingling with the mist. That child isn't abandoned. She's hidden. The words fell like stones into her chest. Hidden, not discarded, not forgotten, hidden. Lila's grip tightened protectively. Why? Who would hide a baby? Ash looked toward the river, his voice low. Her family, powerful enough to erase people, to bend the city to silence. They wanted her gone because her existence threatens them. The ground seemed to tilt beneath Lila's feet. Threatens them? She's just a baby. Bloodlines, Ash said flatly. She carries the wrong blood, a reminder of a scandal they couldn't allow the world to see. Lila's stomach churned. Pieces began to fall into place, the way the baby had been left, not in filth, but wrapped carefully, as though someone cared yet feared discovery. "Who are they?" she whispered. Ash turned his eyes to her, sharp and unyielding. "A family you don't want as enemies. The kind who build empires on shadows, who'd rather burn a child's cradle than let it expose their shame." The baby stirred, tiny fingers brushing Lila's collar. The innocence of the gesture made the truth sting sharper. "So she's in danger?" Lila said, almost to herself. Ash nodded once. "As long as she breathes." Lila's knees weakened. She sank to the stone steps near the river, hugging the child closer. "Then why tell me this? Why not take her yourself if you know so much?" His jaw clenched. "Because I don't want her blood on my hands. I've seen enough of their destruction. I can't watch another innocent vanish into it." There was pain in his voice, buried, controlled, but real. It made Lila hesitate. "You've lost someone," she said quietly. Ash's eyes darkened. "We all lose someone. Some of us just don't get to bury them." The answer sent a chill down her spine. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the river's relentless current. At last, Lila spoke. "What do you want me to do?" "Keep moving. Stay unseen. Don't linger long enough for whispers to turn into trails." His words were sharp, practical, almost rehearsed. "And don't trust anyone who comes asking questions, not even those wearing a badge." Lila swallowed. "Then what about you? Can I trust you?" Ash's expression softened only slightly. "You'll have to decide that for yourself." The baby let out a soft cry, fragile yet insistent. Lila rocked her gently, whispering comfort. But her mind was a storm. She had thought she was saving a life from neglect. Now she realized she had walked into a battle far larger than herself, one tied to wealth, power, and secrets buried deeper than the river's black water. And yet as she gazed at the child's tiny face, she felt the same pull that had guided her that night in the alley, the unshakable instinct to protect her, no matter the cost. Ash crouched down, his voice dropping lower. "One more thing. If they discover she's still alive, they won't just come for her. They'll come for you." The warning settled like lead in Lila's chest. She had no home, no shield, no army of shadows like the people Ash described. She had only herself, and this fragile bond she could not abandon. But she lifted her chin, meeting his eyes with a steadiness that surprised even her. "Then let them come. I won't let them touch her." For the first time, Ash's stern face cracked, revealing the faintest trace of respect. "Then you'd better be ready," he said, "because the past never stays buried, and when it rises, it drags everything with it." As the river whispered its secrets to the night, Lila realized she was no longer just running from hunger and cold. She was running from history itself, and history had teeth. The city had a way of swallowing sounds at night, muting footsteps, masking whispers. But Lila could feel it, eyes following her, invisible threads tightening around her with every corner she turned. She walked faster, cradling the baby beneath her coat. The child's warmth anchored her, yet every small cry threatened to betray their presence. Ash's warning echoed in her mind. Don't linger. Don't trust anyone. By dawn, she had taken shelter in a half-collapsed apartment building, its windows shattered, its halls stinking of mildew. She laid the baby down on a folded jacket, trying to quiet her own trembling hands. From the shadows, a pair of rats scurried across the broken tiles. Lila pressed her back against the wall, forcing herself to breathe evenly. And then, faint but undeniable, a creak. Someone else was inside. Her heart lurched. She clutched the baby close and froze, listening. A man's voice, low and clipped, drifted through the dark corridor. "Check every floor." "She's here." Lila's blood ran cold. Heavy boots clattered against broken stairs. Another voice followed, impatient. "Boss wants her alive, the kid too. Don't screw this up." Panic clawed at her throat. She gathered the baby, wrapping the coat tighter, and moved silently toward the rear exit. Each step felt like it thundered in the silence. From the stairwell above came a sudden crash, wood splintering under force. The hunters weren't cautious, they were confident. "Basement's clear," one called out. "Then she's still here," another growled. Lila slipped into a narrow service corridor, the stench of damp concrete stinging her nose. She pressed forward, but the path ended at a rusted iron door. She shoved at it, but it didn't budge. Behind her, voices drew closer. "Third floor's empty. She must be ground level." Her pulse hammered. The baby stirred, letting out a fragile whimper. Lila pressed her cheek against the child's head, whispering, "Please, just a little longer." She tried the door again. This time it gave with a screech of metal, opening onto the alley beyond. She slipped through, pulling it shut behind her. The alley reeked of rot and oil. Rain began to fall, tapping softly against rusted gutters. Lila ducked beneath a sagging fire escape, hugging the wall as two men emerged from the building's front entrance, scanning the street. One lit a cigarette, its glow briefly illuminating a scar that cut across his jaw. "She won't get far," he muttered. The other smirked, not with a baby slowing her down. Their words stung like knives, but they also told her one thing. They were confident, maybe too confident. She waited, holding her breath, until they split. One heading toward the main road, the other vanishing into the alley's opposite end. Now or never. She darted from her hiding spot, feet splashing through puddles, clutching the baby tight. Her lungs burned, every shadow stretching like a hand reaching for her. At the far end of the alley, a figure emerged, tall, broad, moving directly toward her. Lila stopped dead. The figure paused beneath a flickering streetlight. For a moment, she thought it was another hunter, but then she saw the familiar outline of his coat. Ash. He approached quickly, his voice a harsh whisper. "You're reckless." "They're inside," Lila gasped. "They're hunting us." "I know," Ash replied, scanning the rooftops. "They're not just hunters. They're cleaners. They erase problems. Permanently." The baby whimpered again. Ash's eyes softened for the briefest instant before hardening once more. "We have to move. Now." They cut through the back streets, Ash guiding with precision, always knowing when to pause, when to duck, when to vanish into shadow. But Lila could feel it. No matter how fast they moved, the presence behind them never faded. Every turn of the city seemed tighter, narrower. The shadows weren't just closing in, they were hurting them. At last, they reached the edge of a derelict train yard, tracks twisting into the distance. Ash stopped, scanning the dark horizon. "This is as far as I take you," he said. Lila stared at him in disbelief. "What do you mean? You can't leave us now." Ash's jaw clenched. "If I stay, I'll only draw more of them. You'll have a chance if you go east. There's someone who owes me, someone who can hide you." "Who?" Lila demanded. His eyes flickered with hesitation before he answered. "A woman named Mara. She was once part of their circle. She knows how to disappear." Lila's mind spun. Could she trust this Mara? Or was Ash leading her into another trap? Before she could decide, the sharp crack of gunfire split the night. A bullet sparked against the rails, too close. Voices shouted in the distance. Ash shoved her toward the tracks. "Go! Don't look back!" The baby wailed as Lila stumbled forward, clutching her tighter, legs pumping on pure fear. Behind her, Ash turned toward the pursuing shadows, his figure swallowed by the night. And Lila realized, whatever happened next, she was no longer just fleeing. She was stepping into a war. The city's silence shattered with every gunshot, and as Lila ran into the unknown, she knew one truth. Shadows never stop chasing, they only grow darker. Lila's breath came in sharp, uneven bursts as she pressed the baby tightly to her chest. The city that had once been her prison now felt like a maze she was desperately trying to escape. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, every footstep behind her seemed heavier. She wasn't just a girl on the streets anymore. She was a girl holding a secret worth more than anything she had ever imagined. The Heiress. The word still didn't make sense in her head. Could it be true? Could this tiny, fragile child in her arms, once tossed away like trash, belong to a fortune that stretched beyond her wildest dreams? And yet, with every new step, danger loomed closer. She ducked into an abandoned building, walls cracked and windows broken, and sank against the cold concrete floor. The baby stirred, tiny fists curling and uncurling as if reaching for something unseen. Lila's own hands trembled as she stroked the child's cheek. "You're safe with me," she whispered, though deep down she wasn't sure it was true, because she wasn't alone. Through the shattered doorway, a figure emerged, the man who had been following her, his shadow now unmistakable in the dim light. His coat brushed the ground as he stepped inside, his presence filling the silence. "You've done well." His voice was smooth, too calm for the tension that hung in the air. "But you can't keep running forever. The child isn't yours to protect." Lila's heart hammered. "She was thrown away," she shot back, her voice breaking with both fear and fury. "If she doesn't belong to me, then who does she belong to?" The man tilted his head, a faint, unreadable smile playing on his lips. "To a family that doesn't even know she exists. A family that will stop at nothing to bring her back. And you..." He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "You're just in the way." Lila felt the walls closing in. The last refuge she had chosen was nothing more than a trap. But then, in the distance, came the faint wail of sirens. Blue and red lights danced across the broken glass, spilling into the room like a lifeline. The man's face twisted, his calm mask breaking for the first time. He cursed under his breath, retreating into the shadows as quickly as he had appeared. Lila held the baby tighter, relief and terror crashing together in her chest. She stood as officers burst in, their voices firm but not unkind. At first, they saw only a homeless girl clutching a baby too tightly. But as she told them what had happened, her voice trembling but resolute, their expressions changed. What followed felt like a blur. The police took her to the station where lights were bright and questions came fast. But instead of suspicion, there was something else, something she had never felt before. Respect. And then came the revelation. The baby, once discarded, was confirmed through records and DNA to be the missing heiress of a billionaire family who had been searching for years. Headlines erupted overnight. "Homeless girl saves heiress." But the story didn't end there, because when the family arrived, tearful and grateful, they didn't just see the baby. They saw the girl who had risked everything to keep her alive. And for the first time in her life, Lila wasn't invisible. They offered her more than thanks. They offered her a place, a chance to rebuild her life, not in shadows, but in light. As she sat in the warmth of their home weeks later, the baby asleep in her arms, Lila stared out the window at the city streets she once called home. She knew life would never be simple. There would always be scars, always whispers of the past. But for the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was living. And the little girl who had been abandoned had given her something she thought she'd lost forever: hope. And in saving the heiress, Lila had saved herself. Sometimes the ones society forgets are the very ones chosen to protect what's most precious. And sometimes, the last refuge isn't a place but the people we choose to fight for. Lila's story ends here, but many more powerful and emotional journeys are waiting to be told. If you'd like to keep exploring stories that touch the heart and spark the imagination, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Who knows? Maybe the next story will stay with you long after it's over.